This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, and welcome to part 2 of our 3-part series about motivation. I'm Akila Davis of Courageous Business Culture. Now, tonight I promised to talk about tonight. Tonight, you're in for a treat. I have a slideshow for you. Do you remember in session 1, I talked about motivation is energy? And when we want to think about that, if you look at this little diagram, the world around us, our world, the planet that we live on, energy is the fuel of life, starting with solar energy. If the sun dies, we die. And we are harnessing that energy to make things happen in our world today. We also use biomass energy from plants and other organics. We harness wind energy, geothermal energy, and hydropower energy. We're utilizing all of the elements around us to produce energy. But as I said, for us, motivation is energy. So the question is, where does motivation come from? Where do we get the energy, or what de-energizes us when we get demotivated? Where does it come from? And I'm sure for many of you, what popped into your head was inside. It comes from inside. And you know what? You're right. Absolutely right. In our brains, there is a constant dance going on by the 3 domains of our brain. And the one I'll talk about, because it's what most people know, it is the cognitive part of the brain. And the cognitive part of the brain is the thinking portion. It is responsible for knowing. It's about our IQ, it's about our EQ, it's about our memories, it's about how we process information, how you do math. All of that type of things are in the cognitive. And that's why, if you have ever done a psychometric assessment, it was looking at the cognitive portion of your brain. 98% of assessments out there are for the cognitive. And they're not just used for jobs, they're used a lot by the medical field. For example, if somebody thinks that they may be experiencing the start of dementia, when they go to see a neurologist, one of the things they look at is memory. You know, they have various tests to look at how this person's memory is performing. And from there, they can start to make an assessment if you're having a cognitive problem. So that's the cognitive part of the brain. And that, it also stores all of our experiences. And a lot of what we do is based on our personal experiences. So that's going on there. The cognitive is a lot less well known, but no less important to us and what we do. And that's because this is the doing part of the brain. Okay? This is where we are drive, necessity, instinct, talents, and mental energy is processed and happens. It's also where willpower and planning happens. So if you wake up in the morning and you think, what am I doing today? Well, you've just engaged the cognitive part of your brain. When you sit down to create a plan, you're engaging both the cognitive and the cognitive, because you're bringing forward information that you already know and part of your history to decide what you're going to do, how you're going to take action in getting to wherever it is you want to get. And then the third one is our affective. And the affective part of the brain is our feeling part of the brain. Okay? It is where our values are stored, our emotions. It's where our attitudes and preferences are also stored. It's where our desires are stored. So quite often, you don't even know that when you're planning, your feelings are affecting the actions you're planning to take because of how you feel about it. If you love to do something, it'll probably show up in your plan. If you hate it, you may not put it in your plan. What matters for you is right now, your affective, your cognitive, and your cognitive are acting together. And that is how you show up in your world today. So if you're feeling energetic, if you're motivated, that's how you show up to the people around you. If you're feeling down and don't have the energy to do anything and you don't want to go to work, that's how you show up. And this is where it's coming from. So you can see how right you were about it's coming from you internally. But there's another factor. And this factor is something that we don't think about. It is our lives as a whole. A lot of our motivation, 30 to 40% of our motivation comes from our past. And our past is related to that cognitive part, where our experiences of what we have had, we've reasoned out that, let's say you're somebody who maybe 2 or 3 big experiences in your life, new experiences, something happened that made it a bad experience for you. But it was so emotionally devastating, it got stored in your brain as something that comes to mind as soon as you think of new experiences. So if you were somebody who has just been fired, let's say, you will probably feel very, very devastated because now you're going to have to look for a new job in a new place, which means a new experience. And for you, you feel that it would be a bad experience, so you are not motivated to do it. And how do you know that's why you are procrastinating in finding a job? You don't. You just know you don't want to do it. You don't want to put yourself out there. The second part is the present. Oh, by the way, the past also contains not just your memories, it contains all of the information, all of the experiences you've had, and up until the age 6 or 7, which is considered the age of reason, everything you've heard, everything you've seen, everything that you have felt has gone straight into your subconscious. So if you heard parents or grandparents or teachers or, talking about stuff you didn't understand, but it helped to actually program your attitudes, your reaction, your beliefs. And these are the things that goes into motivations. So when we look at that, it's like, oh, but that is what it is. Okay? Until you can go in and declutter what's in here, until you understand what your motivations are and where it's coming from, you can't possibly change it. Or what you can change your motivation maybe, but if you go into what is keeping you demotivated, keeping you from acting on your motivations, that can certainly be of benefit to you. The second part is your self-concept. If you're feeling confident or if you're feeling a loss of confidence, it will affect how you act. If you are feeling powerful or powerless, it will affect how you act. In the moment, it will affect how you are going to step forward or not. So I'm going to stick with the employment theme for now, but let's say that let's stick with the person who lost their job, okay? And an advertising comes up that they know they have done similar things to that job, but he looks at it and he thinks, oh, I'm not qualified, so I'm not going to apply for it. And a friend from work who came by to see, brought the ad with him and says, hey, are you going to apply for this job? And he goes, no, I'm not qualified. The friend looks at him and goes, what do you mean? Do you remember when you did this at the office? Do you remember when our boss was out for 6 weeks and you took over her job and you got everything moving? When she came back, she was so grateful because she didn't have this backlog to work with. Yeah. And do you remember when, this happened in our church and you took over and found a solution so that we can move forward? I said, yeah. Well, those are all the things you need for this job. And he looks at it again and he thinks, you know what? I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. So what his friend did was give him the self-confidence that he had probably lost as part of being fired in order to motivate him to do this job. Now, the friend didn't motivate him. The friend told him things that influenced his motivators, made him feel better about himself, made him see that, yes, I can do this, so now I'm going to do it. The motivation has moved to a positive from a negative. The friend could have told him all of that, and if he didn't recognize it within himself, it wouldn't have made any difference. Okay. And then we move over to the third part, expectations for the future. And staying with the same theme, he goes for the interview, had a nice long talk with them, and when he comes home, he was telling his wife that this company had a great plan for moving employees ahead, and that if he accepted this job, if he got a job offer and he accepted it, he can see where he will be going. And he thought that was a very exciting future. So he was going to do some more research in the company. He was really enthusiastic about it. And that if they did have a second interview, he would have great questions to ask them. And if he was offered a job, he would take it because he saw a future in it for himself. That is no different than a university student. Most university students, and I know I may be overgeneralizing, but most university students are not going to university and finishing their degree because of the love of learning. They're doing that because all of the statistics have shown them that if they finish their degree, they will make more over their lifetime than somebody who only had a high school degree or a high school diploma. And if they went up to a second, a postgraduate degree, let's say a master's, you're likely to make even more. And if you get to the PhD level, you're likely to make even more. So people do things in expectations of what will happen. By the same token, if your expectations of the future is negative, then why would you get out and do anything? Because, although sometimes it can be empowering. It's like the two brothers who were talking, and the one said, what are you so worried about? The worst thing that can happen is you'll die. And the other one says, Yeah. And he goes, well, you'll die anyway, so you might as well do it. It depends on our attitudes, how we take some of these things. That's the effective part of our brain. So when you look at all of that, one of the things that's very, very important is how are you feeling about yourself right now? Are there things in your past which are holding you back? What are your expectations about the future? And how is that impacting what you're feeling right now? In our third session, I'll be talking about how motivation shapes lives. And I hope you'll be here to listen to it. Thank you very much, and see you in part 3. Bye. This is Akilah Davis.